Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Thrive, Not Just Survive. Today, my session is actually a little bit later in the day, as you notice. Most of the time, I go in at 10 a.m. However, today we're doing a very special interview with a very powerful woman that I had met through another networking group. And so I wanted to bring her on because I'm in this position in terms of midlife, and I have questions about how do we maintain our health, and the different things that come up as our metabolism slows down, and different things, hormones and things like that begin to change. It obviously affects our life. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to bring Lynne on just so that she can guide us, because this is her zone of genius, as I like to call it, in terms of how she's been helping women through midlife. And I want to bring her on so we can get this conversation started. So let's do this. Hey, Lynne, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Nazira. I appreciate it.
No problem. So tell me, first of all, where you're at. You're in Florida?
I'm in Florida. We're in the middle of a storm at the moment, so that affects my voice. So excuse me if it's in and out. And I'm originally from England.
Okay, I can hear a bit of that English accent. So before we start, I want to I like to give people a frame of reference of where your story began. Obviously, you didn't land here just by doing what you're doing. You came here because something guided you. So can you kind of give us an overview of your life, of what happened?
Yeah, so my history goes back many, many years. It actually started to be bad when I was 16. I had mono, which of course most people think mono, no big deal. 3 weeks, you're done. Well, I had it for 6 months. They thought I was going to die. They thought I had leukemia. And that kind of started this whole autoimmune thing for me. So I've been through many surgeries, had my gallbladder out, had my tonsils out, had a hysterectomy, although I kept my ovaries, and started when my hormones changed with my kids with migraines. So when I moved to Florida, and because of weather like this, I was getting them daily, became hooked on Vicodin, and was a yo-yo dieter all of my life. So I got a few things going on to where it kind of brought me to my knees. And I'm like, I can't go on like this. I'm going anywhere from anorexic to fat. I'm going with migraines every day. My life was really pretty miserable. So I hadn't even realized at that point anything about an autoimmune disease, mono being such. But I do know that I felt so lethargic all the time. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when I was working full time, I would literally fall asleep at my desk. Wow. So I kind of got to the point where it was enough is enough. I'm going to have to do something. And it kind of led me to this research. And then I ended up finding a nutrition school, and I attended. I learned so much that it totally revolutionized my life. I went from these daily migraines to a couple of months that they're a little bit worse at the moment, this time of year for me. But I learned how to control the autoimmune. I went through menopause, put on more weight, but during the process learned how I could control that better. So I no longer fall asleep at my desk mid-afternoon. I'm generally pretty energetic most of the time. So that was a total change for me. And a lot of that was just with changing my lifestyle.
That's really the key, isn't it? As we begin to change in terms of our age and the different things that go on in our metabolism, our body functions, it is about changing a lifestyle. It's not like you can do and be and eat what you did when you were 18.
Right. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
It really is. And so for many people, they continue on that thing about, well, this always worked before, so I don't understand why it's not working now. And they continue on this pathway of yo-yo dieting or changing to the latest fad diet, and it just doesn't work. It didn't work to begin with, but it's even worse now. it's I think during this hormonal change, women tend to get a little bit more into wanting more sugar, into wanting more carbs. Somehow, just the way our whole body is thrown off, that becomes a bigger problem for people.
Exactly. And so in terms of you, how you help your clients, can you talk us through a little bit of that in terms of the work that you are able to do with them so that it can help them throughout this sort of midlife time?
Right. So really it's teaching, and I go with the person and how they feel and what's bothering them, because obviously for some people it's a little bit different. Most of us, when we get to this age, deal with belly fat. So I kind of teach people how to eat and what to eat so that they can feel re-energized, because when we get to this stage in life, we have no energy. We don't like ourselves. So there's a little bit of mindset work there, because people have to realize that we are just as valuable, if not even more so, when we get into our 40s and 50s. We've got so much wisdom to offer to people. So it's a little bit of the holistic thing that I do. It's a rounded thing. It's talking to people about their food, about their lifestyle, about exercising, about the whole mental part and the emotional part that we go through, and teaching people how to feel better actually than they did when they were probably in their 30s, because that's how I feel. And it's definitely doable. And it's not being on a diet, because I don't believe in diets anymore. It's this whole lifestyle change.
Exactly. And I think this is the importance of it, right? When you're going through it, you can try different things, but if you talk to somebody who can really get you laser focused on things that are important to you, because each person is different, like you said, and we're struggling with different things, or our lifestyles are a bit different, or our family commitments are different. So is your type of coaching more sort of individualized?
It is more individualized. I do much better one-on-one with a person, because what I like to do is to get into the nitty-gritty of what is it that's your stumbling block that's keeping you from being the beautiful, fulfilled woman that you can be in your midlife. So that's kind of not so easy to do with a group. So I really like to work one-on-one with people.
That's amazing. And I think that's what really makes things probably more transformative for people, because you're doing this one-on-one work. It means that you're really dealing with their struggles and allowing them to sort of take that path that will work best for them. So can you tell us sort of what does that involve, like working with you one-on-one? Is it like a 12-week program, or how do you do it so they can get that transformation?
So it starts off really as a 3-month program, a 12-week program. That is what I would rather do with people. But in reality, it takes longer than that to build up lifetime habits. But I start with 12 weeks. For some people, of course, with COVID, and there's this whole thing about people losing their jobs. So I've tried to kind of shift a little bit to do a monthly mentorship with them, so that it makes it affordable for people that are in that situation affected by COVID. But really, it does take at least 12 weeks. They say it takes 30 days to make a habit, but it really takes longer than that for people to really get it and get all those little things that really people don't even think about. There's so much involved with changing your habits and changing your life.
Well, it has been so many years of doing something habitually, right? So I can see how it can take time to undo those habits that are just now become general, for us to kind of lean towards, right?
And people don't even realize some of the habits that they've got, or they don't even realize why they put on weight and some of the things that they should stay away from. Even things as easy for me to go to a grocery store. Some people start with having no knowledge whatsoever to know how to shop in a way that's going to be the healthiest for them.
Right. And so can I ask you this? I know I didn't ask you this before, but I wanted to find out, like, when you're talking healthy, are we talking about things that people aren't going to really like eating, and, you know, sort of looking at stuff that, oh my God, I don't want to go down that road because I'm going to be starving.
No, my whole thing is that your lifestyle has to fit in with your life. So for some people, that can be making a dramatic change. For other people, it can be making small habit changes bit by bit. So you're always trying to get your healthiest option in. So if people love to go out to eat, then I teach them how to eat out so they can still enjoy what they want. My programs are not about deprivation. So if you want to have your glass of wine and you want to have your chocolate, it doesn't cut those out of your lifestyle, because remember, we're not talking diet, we're talking lifestyle. So there's still room in there to eat the things that you love. It's just kind of tweaking those things a bit so that you're eating in a more healthy fashion. So
And I
not
guess,
everybody loves quinoa like I do, so I get that. So it's kind of teaching people how to make the healthiest choice for them.
right. And I guess the first part of all of this is the awareness. Like you said, like when you're grocery shopping, if you can understand, right, how to shop more in a healthy way, in having that awareness is even a really huge step, because sometimes we do things so robotically, not even thinking about it.
Right. So my people, I always teach them shop on the outside of the grocery store. The only time I go on the inside is if I'm looking for something like coffee. I very rarely go into the other aisles, and that's the best way to be. And then I teach them how to be able to shop that way on a budget, because let's face it, not everybody can go in the grocery store and buy tons of produce. It costs an arm and a leg. So, you know, it's teaching them how to be aware of some of the ways that they can save money and still eat healthy.
Yeah. And I think this, again, you know, these are new habits that you're forming, new learnings that are happening, right? Because with COVID, I mean, let's just, you know, things have really been hard on some people who have lost jobs, who've been laid off. And, you know, that's always been something that will deter you from making those healthier choices if your resources are limited.
Right. So there are things like in our neighborhood, we're lucky enough to have a co-op. So you can go to a farmer's market and have a lot cheaper chance at produce. There are places online that will deliver fresh that are a lot cheaper. And the co-op that we go to, you can get $20 worth of vegetables. So there's just my husband and I at home. We couldn't nearly eat the vegetables and fruits that we get for $20. There's so much of it. So there are ways that you can still eat healthy on a budget.
That's, you know what, and I think, again, it's part of that learning, and it's part of figuring these things out. And although, you know, one can say, well, I can Google this and I can ask a friend, or I can do this, when you have somebody who's already sort of had that roadmap built for you, it's just a faster transformation. It's a faster way of getting the actual information that's going to work.
Yes, for sure, because we need the accountability. That's how I work best in my life. I really need accountability in so many things. So for most people, having that weekly accountability, because I don't work like most coaches. We were taught in college, do twice a month, 60 minutes. If you go to Weight Watchers, let's face it, you go check in once a week, you need that accountability. So that's kind of how I've switched up my program to accommodate people so that they can have much better accountability with me.
That's amazing. I think that's key. Accountability on any coaching program is one of those key elements that without it, really, you're not going to be able to get to that next level. True. Because that accountability is what that piece that really helps you move forward. So I really appreciate that. And I think the fact that you're doing it a weekly check-in, it even gives more of the accountability and the empowerment, like where you're able to check in, and if they're having a great week, to be able to sort of positively empower them. Yes. And if it's been a weaker week, like a less sort of monumental week, you can also encourage them and make them, you know, feel again that there's still possibility of changing that around, right? Like it's not always, it's going to be up and down. There's going to be ebbs and flows. But again, to have the person there that's really on your team, cheering you on, is something that is transformational in any level of any type of, coaching. In your case, it's health and wellness. So can you tell me a little bit? I know you've just launched something very exciting, and I have to put my date on for you, but can you talk to us about this new thing that you've just launched?
Yes, so I just launched a podcast, and it's called Living Life Naturally. So I'm interviewing people that get into every facet of life, but really geared toward people in midlife to help them maneuver. So it's not just our weight. It might be exercise, it might be finances, it might be relationships. I mean, there's so many facets involved for us as we hit midlife. So I'm trying to get a variety of people that can talk to different issues and different areas. Many people, I hear that when they hit midlife, they get into thyroid issues. That's not something that I'm an expert in, but I've had people on. I did a radio show in the past, and I've had people on talking about that. So I plan to do that. I'm also looking for somebody to talk specifically about relationships, because actually the divorce rate goes up during our midlife phase. So I want to help people be preventative, to be aware, to give them education, because when we're educated, we can no longer bury our heads in the sand. So I've had some interesting people on so far. I've just released the 6th episode and still have about 4 ready to release, and still looking for people to get on with me to talk about this whole midlife thing with different ways. So if any of your viewers are in midlife and there's something specific they want to know, I would love to know that. That helps me know who to go look for to get some questions answered.
It's amazing when you're able to bring other experts into the mix of the conversation, because of course we have our own expertise, but we don't know everything. And so when we can bring in other experts and other viewpoints, it makes everything so much more lush, I want to call it, with content, so that different people will relate to different types of speakers as well as different types of information. So I think what you're doing with the podcast is brilliant. And I wish you much success. And of course, I want to be on it because I feel like I can probably contribute from some level for the midlife area that you're really concentrating on. I would love to, contribute what I've learned, and I'm in that sort of age group and dealing with things. So that is a great opportunity, I think, for us to continue the conversation. I wanted to ask you if people wanted to contact you, like, because you do work one-on-one and you do have the podcast, but how would they be able to get a hold of you? Where would you kind of want us to go to connect?
Right. So if you go to my website, the easiest way to find me is at the bottom there is the opportunity to schedule a free call with me. And that is the best way to get some information from me and to get to know me, to see if I'm somebody you want to work with, if I can help you. And there's also some free offers on my website for people, especially women in midlife looking to lose weight and find that energy. So I know you got up my website, and also you can find my podcast on there as well.
Perfect. That's awesome. Now, I know before we end, I mean, we can talk about health and wellness for a long time, right? But I also want to be cognizant of our time together. Can you give us maybe like a tip or a strategy for somebody that's maybe out there thinking, I do want to address this in terms of the weight gain, perhaps, that I've seen as I've reached this kind of time in my life? Can you kind of give us a tip on what we may be able to do?
So one of the easiest things to do is to learn to look at your labels when you go to the grocery store. As we mentioned, for women at this age, sugar is a problem. Carbs are a problem. So if you learn, and it's one of the things I educate people on, the names of sugar. If you look at the ingredients of a package, if you can't pronounce the name, or if there are more than 5 ingredients, you may not want to buy that product. So as much as possible at our age, we want to stay away from the processed foods because there's so much added sugar. And problems for us. That was my biggest thing with migraines, was the processed foods.
Right. And I think that's, again, part of awareness, right? Of how when we eat whatever, and if we don't know what we're ingesting, and then it's affecting our body. It's about, again, being aware of really what are these ingredients. And like you said, if you can't pronounce them, you might want to check into that, right?
Right. Right. And most of them on those boxes, even if they say, if a box says healthy, they only have to have one or two ingredients that are kind of healthy for them to put that healthy on there. It does not mean that it's a totally healthy product to eat.
And a lot of that is marketing too, right? Like in terms of those companies using those beautiful healthy pictures and fruits and vegetable pictures, and the words even on marketing can be misleading to some degree.
Yes.
And I think we have to be really conscious when we're shopping, knowing that.
Yes, we do. We do. So even things as simple as orange juice, you need to check and find what is a natural orange juice as opposed to something that has sugar added to it.
Right. Again, this is why I think working with a health and wellness coach is so important, is you shorten the learning cycle, right? Because you've done all of this work, sort of the blueprint of how do you get to where you want to get to in the fastest, shortest amount of time without sort of learning all of the things that you would have to take time to learn and figure out what works, what doesn't work. So I think that is the key in terms of getting somebody who can help you through that process.
Yeah, and always remember that Dr. Google doesn't really always have it right.
Yeah. Well, sometimes what happens with Google is there's too much information, and a confused mind does nothing. So sometimes you get overwhelmed by the information and you just go back to doing what you're doing.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So I think, I think that's amazing that you are able to break this down into smaller steps, work individually with somebody's exact sort of issue or concern that they're struggling with, and be able to plan out for them the next sort of steps that will help them deal with whatever they're dealing with and get to where they want to get to. So I really appreciate that. I think that's brilliant. Is there any parting words before we end the show? I think this kind of information is so valuable.
So people should realize that they don't have to make a super big change. They can start with little steps, healthy swaps, because sometimes it's very overwhelming for people. And don't listen to what others say. People are not necessarily giving right information. As you say, go to somebody that really knows what they're talking about, even if it's for a free consultation, to put you on the right path. Because there is so much confusion out there, so much information, and so much misinformation.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, great advice, because really there is a lot of information, misinformation. How do you decipher between the two? And really, if you want to get a move on helping you feel better, especially through midlife, and having some better habits being built in, it's best to work with a professional, with a genius like you, who's done the research, who does know how to get somebody from point A to point B. So thank you so much for taking the time, one, to talk with me, and for two, sharing your light with us, because I think this is an important topic.
Thank you, Nazira. It's been fun.
Thank you. I wish you, a wonderful day. I know you've got a storm brewing over there, so please be healthy and well. And I will probably be seeing you soon, I hope, on one of your podcasts. Or I probably won't be seeing you, but I know that we do audio, so I'll be.
I do video as well.
Okay. That's perfect. Well, I'll definitely be reaching out to you, and thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you.
Bye, Lynne. So that was Lynne, and she was talking about midlife, things that we as women go through. And if you want to really take your health into your hands and figure this out, message her and talk to her about maybe even just a free insight call, just so she can, sort of discuss with you, maybe clarify, give you more clarity on what you're dealing with. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Thrive, Not Just Survive. Join me tomorrow. There is another guest that I am going to be interviewing. And I just want to wish you a very happy Monday. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Remember to be kind to yourself and others. I'll see you tomorrow morning.